I want you to picture a specific moment. You've prepared for months, maybe years, for something huge. Maybe it's a massive presentation to the board, or or maybe it's your wedding day, or it's the final match of a tournament you've trained your whole life for.
The big moment. The one that counts.
Exactly. You are suited up, you've got the script memorized, you have the skills, you are standing right there, right at the edge of the precipice, ready to jump, and then a system crashes.
And you're not talking about a computer system. You mean the human operating system.
Oh, totally. A total systemic shutdown. And it's not just, butterflies in the stomach.
No, it's way beyond that.
It's your mouth going completely dry, your hands shaking so hard you can't hold a pen, your vision blurring, and your mind, which was like razor sharp 2 minutes ago, it just turns into absolute slush.
Right.
You're overwhelmed, you're paralyzed, and honestly, you don't even want to win anymore. You just want to sit down in the dirt and maybe just cry.
It's a terrifying experience, a really terrifying place to be. In modern clinical terms, we might call that an acute panic attack.
Yeah.
Or, the final stage of burnout, or even a nervous breakdown.
Right. And in our culture, especially in professional circles, we view that moment as the ultimate failure. It's weakness. It's something you have to hide.
Oh, absolutely. If you break down, you're done. That's the narrative.
But I was reading through the material for today's deep dive, and I was genuinely shocked to find that one of the most significant philosophical texts in human history, a text that has influenced thinkers from Thoreau to Gandhi to Oppenheimer, starts exactly there.
It does. It absolutely does. It doesn't begin with a victory lap.
It doesn't begin with some wise old man on a mountain giving a TED Talk on the 7 habits of successful warriors.
Not at all.
It begins with a hero, a tough guy, a celebrated warrior, having a complete mental and physical collapse in the middle of a battlefield. We are talking, of course, about the Bhagavad Gita.
Specifically, chapter 1. And the title of this chapter it's just so incredibly telling. In Sanskrit, it's called Arjuna-Vishada-Yoga.
And if we translate that directly, what are we looking at?
It translates to the yoga of Arjuna's distress, or, as it's often more powerfully called, the yoga of despair.
See, that stops me in my tracks.
I see.
The yoga of despair. We usually associate yoga with, what, flexibility, breathing exercises, finding inner peace.
Maybe green smoothie afterwards?
Right, a green smoothie. We definitely don't associate it with the word despair. So how can having a breakdown be a yoga? How can falling apart actually be a spiritual path?
That is the central paradox we're going to unpack today. And to do it, we really have to look at this text not as a religious scripture full of dogma, because that's not our mission here,
No.
but as a psychological case study. We've got a stack of sources, including some really detailed commentaries on the original Sanskrit, and they paint this incredible picture of the psychology of conflict.
So we're looking at the paralysis of analysis. That moment when being smart, when thinking everything through, actually works against you.
Precisely. The text suggests that the first step toward real wisdom isn't confidence. It's not swagger. It is actually the devastating admission that you have absolutely no idea what the right thing to do is.
It's about the necessity of the void.
Yes. You cannot fill a cup that is already full of its own opinions, its own ego. In chapter 1, we watch the protagonist, Arjuna, get his cup emptied. Violently.
Okay, so before we get to the breakdown itself, we have to set the stage. And the setting here is weirdly specific. It feels like the location is a character in and of itself. Where exactly are we?
We're at a place called Kurukshetra. Now, geographically, it's a real place in India. But in the text, the very first line of the entire Gita refers to it by another name. Dharma-Kshetra.
Dharma-Kshetra. Okay, break that down for us.
Kshetra means field. Field, a domain. Dharma is one of those giant Sanskrit words that's famously hard to translate into a single English word.
Right. It's like duty, righteousness.
It's all of those. It's righteousness, duty, cosmic order, divine law, or simply that which supports the universe. So we are on the field of righteousness.
That feels incredibly heavy-handed for a battlefield. It's not just the dusty field or the valley of death. It's explicitly a moral testing ground from the first sentence.
Exactly. The coordinates are not just physical, they're ethical. The commentary we looked at suggests that by calling it Dharmakshetra, the text is signaling that this is the designated place where righteous action will ultimately prevail. It implies the land itself has a moral weight. It favors the good.
Which is a huge problem if you're the bad guy.
A massive problem. And this brings us to the narrative layer, which I think is one of the most interesting parts of how this story is told. We, the audience, are not actually on the field with the warriors. We are listening to a remote broadcast.
It's a framing device, like in a movie when it starts with, "Tell me what happened."
A perfect analogy. We are in a palace, miles and miles away from the war. We were sitting with the blind king Dhritarashtra. He is the head of the Kaurava clan, the antagonists, and he has a major disability when it comes to his ability to command.
He's blind.
He is physically blind, yes. He cannot see the war his sons are about to fight. So he has an aide named Sanjaya. And Sanjaya isn't just a messenger who runs back and forth.
The notes mention Sanjaya has divine vision. What does that mean in this context? Is it magic? Is it a metaphor?
In the context of the epic, it's presented as a literal boon, a kind of magic, yes. The great sage Vedavyasa, who composed the epic, offers the king divine sight to watch the war. But the king refuses. He says he can't bear to see the carnage of his own family.
So he outsources the trauma?
He does. So the sage gives the power to Sanjaya instead. Sanjaya can sit there in the palace and see and hear everything happening on the battlefield in real time, as if he were there.
It's basically a mystical drone feed, or like a Zoom call where you can't mute the other side and you can't turn off your camera.
That's a great way to think of it. And the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita is the blind king asking Sanjaya for a status update. He asks, "O Sanjaya, assembled at Kurukshetra, the field of righteousness, eager to fight, what did my people and the Pandavas do?"
On the surface, it sounds like a standard sit-rep situation report. What's happening out there? But our expert sources say this question is actually dripping with anxiety. Why?
Look at the first word he uses, dharma. The king starts by invoking righteousness. The commentaries we reviewed really hone in on this. Dhritarashtra knows, deep down in his heart, that his sons, the Kauravas, are in the wrong. They stole the kingdom. They broke every promise. He knows the Pandavas, his own nephews, are on the side of Dharma.
So by asking about the field of righteousness, he's basically asking, is the field's moral energy going to eat my sons alive? Did it change them?
Exactly. He's terrified that the holy influence of the land might have changed the minds of his sons, or maybe discouraged them from fighting. He's asking, are they still eager to fight? Or did the good vibes of the place make them give up and hand the kingdom back?
Yes.
He is a man who knows he is on the wrong side of history, and he's hoping that his superior military strength is enough to overcome his massive moral deficit.
That is a very specific kind of anxiety. It's the anxiety of the guilty conscience.
It is, and that anxiety trickles down. We move from the blind father in the palace to his son, Prince Duryodhana, right there on the battlefield.
Duryodhana, the main antagonist, the guy who wanted this war more than anyone else.
The architect of the entire conflict. He's standing there on the field, and he looks across at the enemy army, the Pandavas. And this is where we get our first fascinating glimpse into the psychology of deep insecurity.
What does he see? What's his first reaction?
He sees an army that is perfectly strategically structured. The source material highlights a specific Sanskrit word used to describe his reaction, tu.
Kiyu, just a tiny two-letter word.
In Sanskrit, these small particles often carry huge emotional weight. Tu generally means but, or however. But in this context, the commentators explain it signifies a jolt of shock, of astonishment. It's like he was thinking, I expected a ragtag group of exiles who've been in the forest for 13 years. But look at that.
He underestimated them badly.
Completely. He sees a military formation called a vyuha, a complex geometric strategic arrangement. It's professional, it's organized, it's deadly. And seeing that organization just cracks his confidence wide open right at the start.
So what does a manager do when he panics?
He runs to his superior, or in this case, a very specific superior. He rushes straight to Drona.
Now, hold on. I'm looking at the org chart here. Drona is the teacher, the general, sure. But isn't the old man, Bhishma, the actual commander-in-chief of the whole army?
He is.
So if you're the prince and you're worried about the enemy's formation, shouldn't you go to the generalissimo?
You absolutely should. Going to Drona first is a major breach of protocol. It shows Duryodhana's agitated state of mind. But there's an even deeper psychological reason he goes to Drona. He wants to blame him.
Blame him for what? The war hasn't even started.
He wants to blame him for the strength of the enemy, because the commander of the Pandav army is a man named Drishtadyumna.
Okay, Drishtadyumna. Who is he?
He is Drona's own student. Drona, the master of military arts, taught Drishtadyumna everything he knows about warfare. And here's the crazy part. Drona taught him this, even though he knew Drishtadyumna was literally born and prophesied to one day kill him.
Wait, what? Drona taught the guy who was destined to kill him how to fight?
Yes, That's the code. That is the ethic of a true teacher, a true guru in this tradition. You don't withhold knowledge, even if it endangers you personally.
Wow.
But Duryodhana doesn't care about teacher ethics. He walks up to Drona, points at the enemy army, and basically says, look at this great army of the Pandavas arranged by your talented student.
Ouch. That is some serious passive aggression. He's saying, this is your fault, old man. You taught them too well. You created this problem for me.
It's classic toxic leadership. Instead of taking command or inspiring his troops, his first move is to find a scapegoat before a single arrow has been fired. He's trying to guilt-trip his own general to ensure Drona fights with full ferocity. He's essentially saying, you created this mess, now you better fix it.
And what does Drona say? Does he defend himself?
No. The text doesn't record a reply. The silence is just deafening. Drona, the wise old teacher, just listens to this tirade from an insecure prince.
So Duryodhana is ranting, and then he starts doing something that I think we've all done when we're nervous or insecure. He starts counting. He starts comparing.
The comparison game. He starts listing the enemy warriors one by one. He identifies 18 specific Maharathas on the Pandava side.
Let's define that term because it sounds like a big deal. What is a Maharatha?
It's a formal military classification from the epics. A Rathi is a warrior who fights from a chariot. A Maharatha, a great car warrior, is a title for someone so skilled they are capable of engaging 10,000 archers simultaneously, all by himself.
One guy against 10,000? That's superhero territory.
It is absolutely Marvel movie level. These are the special forces, the champions. And Duryodhana starts rattling off their names. There's Drupada, there's Virata, there's Chekitana, the king of Kashi. He lists 18 of them. He is completely obsessed with their strength.
It's like he's actively trying to scare himself more.
He is. He's validating his own fear. See? See how big the obstacle is? But then he tries to pivot. He tries to hype up his own team. He says, now, for your information, O best of Brahmins, let me tell you about the distinguished captains of my own army.
Okay, time for the pep talk.
But it falls completely flat. The source notes a hilarious but darkly revealing detail here. He lists the enemy's champions. 18 names. Then he starts listing his own side. He names 7.
7, but he has the bigger army, right? Why stop at 7?
It reveals his mental state. He can see the threat in high definition, but he can't see his own assets clearly. He names Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna, and then he just sort of trails off. He says, and many other heroes. It's so vague.
That's incredibly unconvincing. We've got, other guys.
Deeply unconvincing, and there is a massive, glaring, catastrophic omission in his assessment of the enemy. I want to see if you caught it in the notes. Who does he not count on the other side?
Well, I'm looking at the list. He names the shooters, he names the heavy hitters, the muscle, but he leaves out the driver. He doesn't name Krishna.
Exactly.
But Krishna is right there. He's literally driving Arjuna's chariot, front and center. Why would Duryodhana, who's terrified of everyone else, just completely ignore the most powerful being in the entire universe?
Because of his worldview.
Yeah.
Because his materialism. Krishna had taken a public vow not to fight in this war. He promised he would hold no weapon. He would only serve as Arjuna's charioteer. To a materialist like Duryodhana, power equals weapons. Power equals hardware.
If you're not holding a sword, you're not a threat.
That's it. He's counting the guns and ignoring the general. He's counting the tanks and ignoring the brilliant software that runs them. The commentary calls this the ultimate fatal flaw of the wicked. Ignoring the intellect, ignoring the divine because it looks passive. He thinks the charioteer is just a chauffeur. He doesn't realize the chariot is being driven by wisdom itself.
That is a profound mistake to make. So Duryodhana is spiraling. He's insulted his teacher. He's terrified of the enemy. He's bad at math. And then he realizes he needs to secure his own base.
He looks at his grandfather, Bhishma, the old lion, the commander. And this thought seems to hit him. If Bhishma falls, we all die. So he shouts out a new order to his entire army. Everyone, stay in your respective positions. Do not move. Your only job is to protect Bhishma from all sides.
That is a massive shift in tone. Just minutes ago, he was arrogant, trying to start a war. Now he's begging everyone to form a human shield around the CEO.
It's pure panic. He went from a strategy of offense to a strategy of pure defense in the span of a single conversation. And Bhishma, the old warrior, he sees all this happening. He sees his grandson sweating. He sees the morale of the entire army starting to wobble. So Bhishma decides he has to intervene.
How? Does he give a rousing speech?
No. He decides to change the vibe sonically. He just has to make some noise.
Okay, let's talk about the soundscape of this battle, because the text spends a lot of time, a lot of verses describing different sounds.
It does. It's very important. Bhishma, to cheer Duryodhana up, lifts his conch shell and blows it with all his might. And he also lets out a lion's roar.
Literal roar.
A battle cry that sounds like a lion. And the moment he does that, the entire Kaurava army erupts. The text lists the instruments: Panava, which are drums; Anaka, which are kettle drums; Gamukha, which are cow horns.
Cow horns, that just sounds chaotic.
It's described as tumultuous, a cacophony. It's a riot of noise. Bugles, trumpets, drums, horns, all at once. It's loud, it's aggressive, and it's meant to intimidate. It's the sound of raw, uncoordinated force. It tears through the sky and the earth.
Okay, so the bad guys are making this huge wall of noise. How do the pandas respond? Do they just bang their drums back even louder?
No.
Ugh.
Their response is completely distinct, and this is a detail I just love. The Pandavas respond not with random drums and horns, but with conches.
The seashells.
Yes. But here's the crucial difference. The Kaurava noise was a mix of everything, a jumble. The Pandava response is unified, it's disciplined. And the text takes the time to give us the specific names of their conches.
They named their shells, like a musician names their favorite guitar.
Exactly. This is an epic poem. The heroes name their weapons, their instruments. It gives them personality and power. Krishna blows his conch, which is named Panchajanya. Arjuna blows his, named Devadatta, which means God-given. Bhima, the strong man, blows a massive conch called Paundra. And the king, Yudhishthira, blows his Ananta Vijaya, which means endless victory.
It feels more like a symphony than a riot, a coordinated blast.
That is precisely the implication. The Kauravas made noise. The Pandavas created a sound. It was harmonious, it was synchronized, and it was piercing. And the impact of this sound is described in a very visceral way. The text says this unified sound shattered the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons.
Wait, literally shattered their hearts? Or is that just a metaphor for being scared?
It's psychological shattering. The text says the sound pierced both the earth and the sky, and in doing so, it broke their resolve. It's so interesting. The Kauravas made all that noise to scare the Pandavas, but the text never says the Pandavas were scared.
Right.
But when the Pandavas responded with their unified sound, the Kauravas were terrified.
It's the difference between a mob shouting randomly and a trained choir singing a single, perfect, high-decibel note. One is just loud, the other resonates inside you and shakes you apart.
Precisely. It's signal versus noise. And this idea of sensory input, of a sound piercing the heart, leads us to one of the most famous and important metaphors in all of Indian philosophy. We have to pause the battle narrative for a second here to explain the chariot allegory. Because we're looking at these guys standing on chariots, but the source says the chariot itself is a symbol for you.
For the listener.
For the human being. For the human body and mind complex.
Okay, walk me through this. This is the Uber of the soul metaphor.
Right. It comes from the older Upanishads,
Yeah.
but it's central here. Imagine the chariot. That's your physical body. It's the vehicle you drive around in this world.
Got it. Body is the chariot.
The horse is pulling the chariot. Those are your five senses. Your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch. And they're always eager to run.
Okay.
The road the horses are running on, that's the world of sense objects. All the stuff out there that you see and hear and want. The flashing billboard, the smell of pizza, the ping from your smartphone.
Okay, so the horses want to run on the road. They want the pizza and the notifications.
Right. Now, you have reins connected to the horses. The reins represent the mind, the manas. This is the emotional, feeling, processing mind. It gets pulled around by the senses.
And crucially, holding the reins is the driver, the charioteer.
The charioteer. This is the intellect, the buddhi. Your faculty of reason, discernment, judgment, the decision maker.
And sitting in the back of the whole contraption.
A passenger. The owner of the chariot. That is the Atman, the soul, the real you, which just experiences the ride.
Okay, so let's play this out in a modern scenario. If I'm driving down the highway of my life.
Your eyes, the horses, see a giant flashing donut shop sign on the road. The horses immediately want to veer right. They pull hard.
Yeah.
The tension from the horses travels through the reins, the mind. You feel a sudden strong desire. I want a donut. Now, everything depends on the driver, the intellect.
So if the driver is awake, alert, and knows the destination.
He tightens the reins and says, no horses. We're on a diet. We have a goal. Keep moving straight. The horses, if trained, obey. The chariot stays on the path.
But if the driver is, say, drunk, or asleep at the wheel, or just distracted by its phone.
Then the reins go slack. The horses take control. They drag the chariot off the road into the ditch of the donut shop. The passenger, your soul. just gets tossed around helplessly in the back.
This connects right back to Duryodhana, doesn't it?
Perfectly. Duryodhana is a chariot where the driver, his intellect, is drunk on ego and greed. His horses, his senses, are running wild. That's why his army is chaos and noise.
But Arjuna, on the other hand, literally has Krishna, the supreme intellect, God himself, as his driver. He has consciously surrendered the wheel to the best possible driver in existence.
Right.
That puts a whole new spin on that old saying, Jesus take the wheel. It's not just a country song lyric, it's ancient philosophy. It's a conscious act of admitting, my manual steering is faulty, I need to engage the universal autopilot.
It is the ultimate sanity check. And it's the central question of the Gita. Who is driving your life? Is it your cravings or is it your wisdom?
Okay, so back to the battlefield. The conches have been blown. The hearts of the Kauravas have been shattered. The adrenaline is peaking. The text says missiles are about to fly. And then at that exact moment, Arjuna does something completely unexpected. He calls a timeout.
He speaks to his driver, Krishna, and he asks him to do something very specific, very strange. He says, place my chariot between the two armies. Senor Upayor Madi, right in the middle.
Why the middle? That seems like the most dangerous place to be. Why expose yourself to the crossfire?
He says, I want to look at those who are assembled here, eager to fight. You see, up until this moment, he's been thinking about the war as an abstract concept. He's been thinking about justice, about strategy, about victory, but now he wants to see the reality of it.
It's the difference between looking at a map of a country and looking at the faces of its people on the street.
A perfect analogy. When you're far away, at your end of the field, the enemy is just a blob called the Kauravas. It's an object, a target. But when Krishna drives him into that no man's land in the middle, the resolution sharpens. The blur becomes 4K.
And what does he see when the image becomes clear?
He stops seeing the enemy. He starts seeing faces. He sees Bhishma, the grandfather who bounced him on his knee as a child.
Oh, wow.
He sees Drona, the teacher, who taught him how to hold the very bow that is currently in his hand. He sees uncles. He sees cousins he grew up with, played with. He sees his own friends. He even sees his in-laws.
It's just a list of relatives.
The text lists them out to hammer the point home. Fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, and also friends.
That is a gut punch. It's not a target-rich environment anymore. It's a family reunion from hell.
And this is where the breakdown truly begins. Because you cannot easily kill an abstraction, but you have to kill a person. And Arjuna suddenly realizes with horrifying clarity, I know these people. I love these people.
There's a little detail here about the flag on Arjuna's chariot that I found really interesting. The source mentions it prominently.
Yes, the banner of the chariot. It features the emblem of Lord Hanuman.
The monkey god from the other great epic, the Ramayana. Why is he on the flag? Is that just a cool decoration?
No, nothing in the Gita is just decoration. It's all layers of symbolism. In the Ramayana, Hanuman was the perfect servant of the Lord, the embodiment of selfless service and power. He represents absolute terror to the enemy and absolute protection to the righteous. Having Hanuman on the flag implies that Arjuna is protected from above by the superior soul while being guided from below by the supreme soul, Krishna, the charioteer.
So he is in the safest, most divinely protected vehicle in the entire universe.
Physically, yes, he is completely safe, but emotionally.
Emotionally, he is completely exposed. He's falling apart.
Yes. And now we get to the anatomy of that breakdown, because the text gets very clinical here. This isn't just a description of Arjuna looking sad. This is a physiological event.
The word used is Vishada.
Right, Vishada. It translates to despair or grief, but the commentaries say it implies a deep, heavy, sinking feeling, a mental weakness that is born from delusion and attachment. And the symptoms Arjuna describes are textbook panic attack symptoms.
Walk us through the list. What happens to the world's greatest warrior?
First, he says to Krishna, my limbs are failing. His muscles literally turn to jelly. He's losing motor control.
Okay.
Then, my mouth is parched. Classic cottonmouth. The acute stress is shutting down his salivary glands. Then, my body is trembling. The shakes, uncontrollable shivering.
I think we can all relate to that feeling.
Then, my hair is standing on end. Goosebumps, bristling. And in this one, my skin is burning.
Burning, that sounds like a fever or like a severe allergic reaction to stress.
It's the body having a massive psychosomatic reaction.
Yeah.
It is rejecting the situation. And then comes the most symbolic, the most devastating symptom of all. Verse 30, he says, the Gandiva slips from my hand.
The Gandiva, that's his bow.
It's not just a bow,
Yeah.
it's the bow. It's a divine weapon, a gift from the gods. It is his identity. He is Gandhivadari, the wielder of the Gandiva. He's the greatest archer in the world. For him to drop his bow is like a world-class surgeon dropping a scalpel inside a patient. It is total professional incapacity.
It's the moment the identity just completely crumbles. I am an archer, but I cannot hold the bow. Therefore, who am I?
Exactly. He is stripping his own gears.
Yeah.
He goes on, I am unable to stand any longer. My mind is whirling. He's dizzy. He's disoriented. He's completely confused.
And he starts getting superstitious, right? Looking for signs.
Yes. He says, I see adverse omens, O Keshava.
Hmm.
He starts looking at the flight of the birds and the way the wind is blowing and thinking, the universe is telling me to stop. This is a bad idea.
That is such a deeply human reaction. When we are scared and want to back out of something, we look for external signs to validate our internal fear. Oh, the light just turned red. That's a sign I shouldn't go to this job interview.
We project our internal chaos onto the external world and call it an omen. He's desperate looking for an exit ramp. And then he turns to Krishna and starts asking these huge existential why questions. What is the use of victory? What is the use of a kingdom? What is the use of pleasures?
I think anyone who has ever experienced true burnout has asked that exact question. Why am I doing this? Is this promotion worth the ulcer? Is the money worth the broken relationships?
He says, the very people for whose sake we desire a kingdom and enjoyment and pleasures, our teachers, our fathers, our sons, they're all standing here ready to give up their lives. If I have to kill them to get the kingdom, who am I going to enjoy the kingdom with?
It's the empty castle argument. If I win, I'll just be alone in a big fancy house with the blood on the floor.
It is a compelling argument. It's very moving. And this is where the chapter gets tricky, because if we just stop here, if we close the book now, we might say, wow, Arjuna's such a good guy. He's a pacifist. He loves his family. He's the moral one here.
Isn't he? I mean, he's refusing to kill his grandpa. That sounds pretty moral to me.
It sounds moral, but the text and Krishna in the next chapter is going to challenge this. Because Arjuna doesn't just cry, he starts lawyering. He starts building a sophisticated case to justify his panic. And his arguments sound very logical, but they are driven by attachment and fear, not by true wisdom.
Okay, let's put Arjuna on the stand. He presents, I think, 3 or 4 main arguments for why he should quit. Let's break them down. Argument number 1 seems to involve a couple of demons.
Yes. This is a very subtle, very intelligent dig at Krishna himself. He addresses Krishna with the name Madhusudana.
Which means slayer of the demon Madhu.
Right. Now, for the backstory, the demons Madhu and Kaitaba in the mythology were actually born from Vishnu, from Krishna's own being. They were in a sense of him, but they turned evil, so he had to destroy them.
Okay.
Arjuna is using this name with deep irony. He's implying, look, Krishna, you could kill your own kin, the demons who came from you, because you're God. You have that divine detachment. But I'm just a human. I can't kill my kin. I don't have that willpower. I'm not a demon slayer like you.
He's using Krishna's own resume against him. He's saying, easy for you to say. Okay, what's the second argument?
This is the legal versus moral argument. He calls the Kauravas, his cousins, by a specific legal term, a tataina.
A tataina, what does that mean?
It translates to felons, arsonists, or even terrorists. The ancient law books, the Dharmashastras, define an atataina as someone who commits at least one of 6 specific heinous crimes: arson, poisoning, attacking with a deadly weapon, stealing wealth, stealing land, and kidnapping or molesting another's wife.
And the Kauravas did all of those things.
Every single one. They tried to burn the Pandavas alive in a house of wax. They tried to poison Bhima. They stole the kingdom, the land, the wealth. They dragged the queen, Draupadi, by her hair into court. They are textbook terrorists by their own culture's definition.
And legally, what are you supposed to do with an atataina?
The law codes are explicit. An atataina can be killed on sight without the killer incurring any sin. It's considered righteous self-defense.
So Arjuna knows he has the full legal and moral right to shoot.
He admits it. He says, I know they are felons. But, and here's his brilliant, fearful twist. He says, even so, sin will accrue to us if we kill them. He argues that because they are also family, the law of family protection and love should override the law of punishing terrorists. He argues that blood is thicker than justice.
That is a dangerous, slippery slope. He's basically saying, if my brother is a terrorist who is trying to kill me, I shouldn't stop him because he's my brother.
Exactly. He's confusing personal attachment with universal compassion. He thinks he's being kind and merciful, but he is actually enabling evil to flourish because of his personal attachments.
Okay, argument number 3, this is the big one, the sociological argument. This part sounds like a politician's stump speech about the end of the world.
It is the collapse of society argument.
Mm.
Arjuna predicts this whole domino effect. He lays it out step by step. He says, first, if we fight this war, the best men in the family will die. Second, if the men die, the family unit, the kula, is destroyed. Third, if the family unit is destroyed, the ancient family traditions and religious rites at the dharma of the family are lost forever. And fourth, if tradition is lost, vice and lawlessness, adharma, will take over society.
Okay, so far it's a standard the world is going to hell argument, but then he gets very, very specific about women.
Yes, and this is a part that reflects the ancient patriarchal context of the text. He argues that when lawlessness prevails, the women of the family become corrupted. And when women are corrupted, it leads to something called varna sankara.
Varna sankara, which is the admixture of castes.
Yes, the confusion of lineage, the birth of unwanted progeny. He's arguing that the entire social and spiritual structure of society relies on these strict family and caste lines. If the war happens, that structure breaks, and you get a generation of children who don't know who they are or where they belong, which leads to hell for the family and for those children.
And the final domino in this catastrophic chain.
The ancestors fall from heaven.
Wait, the dead guys fall out of heaven. How does that work?
The belief at the time was that the souls of the ancestors in the afterlife depend on the ritual offerings of rice bowls, the pinda, made by their living male descendants. If the lineage is destroyed or mixed up, there's nobody left to perform the rituals correctly. The supply chain of spiritual food is cut. The ancestors starve and fall from their heavenly abode into hell.
Wow. So he has escalated this incredibly quickly. He's saying, if I shoot this arrow, I am not just killing my uncle, I am single-handedly destroying society, I'm corrupting the youth of the nation, and I am personally evicting my great-great-grandfather from heaven.
It is catastrophic thinking at its absolute finest. He has used his brilliant mind to convince himself that doing his duty as a warrior is actually the greatest cosmic crime imaginable.
And here's the big question. Is he right? Are his predictions accurate?
No.
Not at all.
But it sounds so smart, so logical. It sounds smart, but it's factually wrong. And we know this because we have the benefit of reading the rest of the epic. The Pandavas do fight. They do win the war. And does society collapse? No. Their reign leads to a golden age of justice. Dharma is restored. The ancestors, presumably, are fine.
So his anxiety was lying to him. His very logical-sounding argument was just a fabrication of his fear.
Fear is a great storyteller, but it's a terrible prophet. Arjuna used his powerful intellect to construct a terrifying future that wasn't real, just to justify his overwhelming desire to run away from an unbearable present moment. He projected his internal chaos onto the world and called it sociology.
I feel personally attacked by that statement. I do this all the time. If I have this difficult conversation with my boss, he'll fire me. Then I'll lose my house. Then my dog won't respect me anymore.
And usually you just have the conversation and the boss says, okay, thanks for the feedback. We are all Arjuna, standing on the chariot, paralyzed by horror stories we wrote for ourselves.
So Arjuna has made his case. He's physically a wreck. He's intellectually convinced himself that winning is actually losing. What is his final move in this chapter?
Total surrender to the despair. Verse 47, the final verse of the chapter. Having said this on the battlefield, Arjuna sat down on the seat of the chariot, casting away his bow and arrow, his mind overwhelmed with sorrow.
He just sits down.
He quits. He gives up.
Now, I want to ask about the visual here. He's in the middle of the two armies. Could the enemy see this happen?
Oh, absolutely. They are facing each other, ready to charge. Everyone can see him.
So the enemy army sees the champion, the greatest warrior of the Pandava forces, drop his divine weapon and collapse into his chair moments before the battle begins.
It must have looked like madness.
Yeah.
Or abject cowardice. It sent a disastrous signal to his own troops and a signal of utter weakness to the enemy.
Oh.
From a purely military standpoint, it is the worst possible thing he could have done.
It is rock bottom.
It is. And that is exactly where chapter 1 ends.
It just ends there, with him crying on the floor of his chariot.
Yes. That is the cliffhanger. He is broken.
Oh, we promised the listener at the beginning that this was a yoga, the yoga of despair. When I look at a guy having a complete breakdown, I see failure, I see defeat, I don't see spiritual progress, so why is this a good thing?
Because of what Arjuna was before this moment. Think about it. He was a prince. He was a celebrity. He is the best archer in the world. He was confident. He was self-assured. He was, frankly, probably a little bit arrogant.
He had a full cup.
His cup was overflowing. Yeah. And a person who knows what is right, a person who is full of their own righteousness and their own skill, That person cannot be taught anything new. If Krishna had tried to give Arjuna the profound wisdom of the Gita while Arjuna was polishing his arrows and feeling great about himself, Arjuna would have said, yeah, cool philosophy, bro, but I got this. Watch
It
this.
would have just bounced right off his ego.
Precisely. You cannot fill a cup that is already full. Arjuna had to be emptied. He had to be broken. He had to reach the point where his famous skills were useless, his brilliant logic was just circular nonsense, and his physical strength was completely gone. He had to get to that sacred, terrifying place of saying, I don't know anything anymore.
The breakdown was the breakthrough.
The breakdown was the prerequisite for the breakthrough. It was the demolition crew coming in to knock down the old, rickety house so that the skyscraper of wisdom could be built on that foundation. Vishada despair is a yoga because it is the moment the ego finally, unconditionally, admits defeat. And only when the ego admits defeat can the soul, the real self, finally take the wheel of the chariot.
That puts a completely different frame on our own bad days, doesn't it? When we feel that paralysis, when we feel like we are failing at everything.
It might not be the end, it might be the beginning. It might be the moment you are finally ready to listen to a deeper voice. It might be the moment you stop trying to drive the chariot with your drunk, panicked ego and you finally hand the reins over to something higher, something wiser.
You know, we try so hard in our lives to avoid that feeling. We're told to power through. We say, fake it till you make it. We suppress the doubt.
Arjuna didn't fake it. In his collapse, he was radically authentic. He sat down and said, I am overwhelmed. I am broken. I cannot do this. And because he was honest about his despair, he got to have the two-way conversation with God. If he had faked it, he would have just been another soldier who fought and died.
That is a powerful thought to leave with. We've gone from the anxiety of the blind king to the insecurity of the prince, the chaos of the conchis, the deep mechanics of the chariot, and finally, the total collapse of the hero.
It's a dense and painful chapter, but it is the necessary doorway. You have to be willing to walk through the door of despair to get to the great hall of wisdom.
So here is our challenge for you today. The next time you find yourself at the edge of that precipice and your hands start shaking and you feel that overwhelming urge to just drop the bow.
Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Don't tell yourself you're weak or a failure.
Maybe, just maybe, you can acknowledge that you've reached the absolute limit of what you can do alone. And maybe that's not an ending. Maybe that's the moment the real conversation is finally able to begin.
Sit down in the chariot if you have to, but keep your ears open. The advice is coming.
Thanks for diving deep with us into the wreckage. We'll see you in Chapter 2, where the charioteer finally speaks.
Until then.
Take care.